So if you want to start sourdough, here is everything that you need that will make your life easier. Unbleached bread flour. Rice flour can help for making it not stick to things. Unchlorinated or filtered water and salt. Those are all the ingredients that you'll need. Scales make it easier to measure than measuring cups. All the little tools I use. I think it's helpful to have extra jars. Ones that are flat make it a lot easier to clean than normal mason jars. So wide, flat mouths. This is for scoring. A bowl to store it in. This to cook it in. And this to cut and enjoy. I like to store my flours also, just little quantities in these things because that makes my life easier. Also, if you're trying to entertain a baby while making videos, this is a good idea. So this process takes 3 days. Step 1 will be feeding your starter. So I keep my starter at 30 grams because I find that the easiest to manage and it makes my loaf perfectly. So I already know that there's 30 grams in here because I measured it, and I'll show you how to do that on the last day. So you just turn your scale on, hitting tare so that it goes to 0. Then you're gonna measure 30 grams. This is the bread flour. We have 30 grams, and so we're doing a 1-to-2 ratio because that's what works for me. So I'm gonna do 60 grams of this flour. Oh, I'm in ounces right now. There we go. I don't know if you can see the numbers. Okay. Then I will do 60 grams of unchlorinated filtered water. So I hit tare again to make it go to 0. Water. Did it actually go to 0? I don't know. We'll just go again. I know what it's supposed to look like. A little more, but that's okay. I'll show you what it's supposed to look like. And now we mix. And I definitely have too much water in here, so I'll show you how to add. We'll probably have to add at least 30 grams. I can't turn it around, so we'll do a new video. So here's what it's looking like, and it's too watery, so I need to add some more because it should be looking like pancake batter. So I think we'll need about 30 more. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, I added some more flour. So this is the consistency that we're looking for. Kind of like pancake batter. Another way people test this is by holding their jar upside down. And it should kind of, for the most part, stay. So we just kind of scrape the sides and cover. And then I use a hair tie, and you just kind of mark where the dough is. We'll check back tomorrow morning. In about 12 hours, it should be at least up to here. And there's day 1. Okay, we are now about 12 hours later, so this is considered day 2. They say your starter is ready to be used when it has peaked or there's like a little dome. I don't really pay that much attention to it. If it's concaving, then it's like on its way back down, which it will do in another 12 hours. But when it looks like it's a little more than doubled or tripled, I just start using it. So I'm gonna put my bowl on my scale and I'm gonna hit tare to zero it out. Then I'm gonna dump whatever your recipe calls for, amount of starter or leaven or whatever term they use for this. The recipe that I use to make a smaller loaf will use 90 grams. Typically I will then have 30 grams in here left for my next starter, but because I had a little bit of a weird water snafu last night, I'll probably have a lot more than that. We shall see. If I accidentally put too much, I'll just scoop a little bit out until I'm relatively close to 90. But honestly, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I'm at 90.8. Then I will remove my bowl and I will just immediately get my new glass jar ready. I'll hit tare and I'll pour 30 grams into that because that's how much I like to keep as an active starter. That was 39, which was a lot. So I'm gonna try and get a little bit out of that. Okay, it's at 32. That's fine for me. And then I have quite a bit left still. And so I'll either make something with this today or it just gets called discard and people will put it in the fridge, which will turn it into a non-activated starter. And there's lots of different recipes that you can make with discard where you'll still need yeast since it deactivates the yeast when you put it in the fridge. Or I'll use it today or I'll throw it away. Not sure which I'll do yet. So this, I just recap. I'll put it to the side and it'll just go into step 1 again tonight where I'll feed it for the next day. Glass bowl back on here with the starter in it. And I will hit tare and now I add our water. My recipe calls for 285 grams, but it's a pretty small recipe, so a lot of recipes will call for more than that. You can either pour it directly into the bowl or you can measure separately and pour into. If I accidentally pour a little bit too much, like I just did, then I just have a little cup and I siphon some out of it. So I have 284.4 and that's fine. So then I'll remove my bowl from the scale. I'll take my whisk and I'll just mix it together. And I'll show you what I'm doing. I basically whisk until I rake it through and there's no doughiness left. So there's still a teeny bit. Okay, that looks pretty clear. So it's a little frothy, it's a little milky looking, and there's no chunks left. So we're good to go. We'll just set that down. You put it back on your scale, tare it to 0, and get your flour out. And now I add however much flour your recipe calls for. The small loaf recipe that I use calls for 400. So I just use whatever cup I can find. And I will measure 400. almost there. $3.99.5, that is fine for me. Now some recipes will tell you to add the salt right now and just mix it in, all of that together. I saw a recipe once that said salt and the active starter and yeast don't really like each other, so mix this first, then add the salt later. I've tried it both ways. I don't really think it matters. I just add it in later because it makes my stretch and folds a little bit easier, I think, but you can really add it in whenever. So then I take this down and I just use my dough whisk and I just kind of slowly mix it in. I'll kind of go along rotating it and scraping off the sides. You don't need to get one of these, but the roundness with my round bowl is actually really nice. And you're pretty much just trying to mix until you don't see any flour left. The dough will be kind of lumpy. Some people will go in then and like hand knead it to get all the lumps out. I don't do that, but you could. So it doesn't take long. It's already looking about done. Okay, here's what it looks like. A little bit sticky, but for the most part, shaggy, lumpy. Okay, now I just kind of cover this. And I'm gonna let it sit for 30 minutes to an hour before I add the salt. I will immediately measure out my salt with whatever container you want to measure it in. So tear that container. My recipe calls for 10 grams. So I'll just measure out 10 grams. 10.4, that's good enough for me. And then I just put that away. And that way I can kind of clean up. So now I'm done with my scale. I'm done with my flour, so I can put it away. Done with salt, can put it away. Done with water, so I will refill my water bottles with just the filter from my fridge. I will do whatever I'm gonna do with this. It either has to be used right now because it's still like active and peaked, or I have to put it in the fridge, or I have to throw it away. To be determined in 1 minute. My salt is just laying here next to my bowl, and I will go clean this right now because if it dries on here like this, it's very hard to clean. So I'm gonna go do that right now. And I'll have to use my hand because it's sticky. Okay, it's all clean, but it left some residue. You're definitely gonna wanna clean that right away too, because I mean, it's not a big deal if it dries on here, but that is much easier than having to scrape off hard flour. And Victoria's over here being an angel while I make this video. Okay, it's been about 30-ish minutes. Here's what we're working with. And I'm gonna put our salt in. I kind of just sprinkle it on top and then just kind of dimple or massage it in, like about half, and then I try to like flip the dough over and do the same on the other side. So. now that I've massaged the salt in a little bit, we'll just cover again. And then in about another 30 minutes to an hour, we'll start our stretching and folding. And the purpose of that is, I think, to help with gluten form and to create like density and tension in the dough. So see you then. Okay, we're gonna do some stretch and folds. You're supposed to do them within an hour to 2 after you start your process. I have no idea how long it has been. Because I added the salt after and not with the flour, it kind of makes your dough a little bit wet. The salt kind of like sucks the moisture and the water out, so it makes it a little bit wetter. That's really the only difference that I've noticed with adding the salt later. But basically, you just kind of scoop a little bit of one of the edges and pull up. It's very stretchy. And then just kind of fold it in half. And then I try to like tuck on the edges. Turn it about like a quarter and just do it again. So pull, fold, tuck. So it's already a little bit denser. Doesn't pull as much. Fold in half, kind of tuck a little bit, quarter turn, pull, half tuck, or half fold, little tucks. I'll do it maybe one more time. You just kind of go until it's like too dense to fold in half. So for me, I just did 5. I'll do 6 to just show you, even though I wouldn't normally do this. So now it's like barely able to fold in on itself. And then you just cover and come do it again. They say 30 minutes. I think it could go anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes. And you just do that again. Okay, it's been a little while, probably more than 30 minutes, but I don't know exactly. So let's do some more stretch and folds. Still a little bit wet, but more sticky than wet. When I'm doing these, I can feel some of the clumps, oh my gosh, of like my dough whisk. And so sometimes I'll just press on them with my fingers. Make it a little bit more smooth. Yeah, it's already way more tense. Okay, I'm just gonna do 4. Here's what my dough looks like. So it's already kind of like smoothing itself out. Sometimes I only do 2 sets. The one earlier and this one, they say you can do 3. So for the sake of this video, I'll come back and do a third in maybe 30 minutes, hopefully 30 minutes, but anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes is fine. Okay, we're back for our third set, final set of stretch and folds. Here's what our dough's kind of looking like. After the stretch and folds, we let the dough sit on the counter to rise in a process that is called bulk fermentation. There's a lot of science behind it that I don't really care to learn. I just know that it depends on the temperature of your house, the temperature of your dough, for how long it should be sitting out on the counter in order for it to be rising. So there's lots of charts that you can find online. The easiest way to do this is to just have a thermometer and just stick it right into your dough. My house is usually between 68 and 71, 72 degrees. My dough is usually around 70. So that means my bulk ferment should be about 12 hours. That time starts whenever you started this process. So I started maybe, when did I start? 9 or 10 a.m. And so I'll let this sit on the counter until 9 or 10 p.m. and then I'll stick it in the fridge for cold proofing. I don't really know what that means. So if your house is a little bit hotter, then your rise is gonna happen faster. And so you let it sit out for maybe 8 hours versus if your house is colder, the rise is gonna take longer. And so you let it sit out for maybe 16 hours. But this whole process is called bulk fermenting, and it's just about, I don't know what it's about, but the dough will rise a little bit. It's not like huge, but it'll come out a little bit. There's not really a good way for me to show you this. I don't even have my scraper up here. Oh, I do right here. I use this to help me clean the bowl. So let's see if we can clean some of these edges. Yeah, maybe not, for you to be able to see where our dough is at. Whatever, I'm gonna let this sit and we'll be back to shape it. It's currently 1 o'clock, probably around sometime tonight, 8 or 9 or 10. I really don't think it matters how long. Okay, see you later. Okay, so it's been about 12 hours, maybe, since I created this loaf. It's just nice and thick, and she kind of jiggles. So now we're gonna shape. So I got my bowl, I got my banneton, and I've got some rice flour. Sometimes I use this, most of the time I don't, but I'll use it just for now with a guest appearance from Victoria. Some people like to fist pump this just to see all the bubbles burst. I don't know if you can see all of that. It'll be quite sticky though. See, it kind of then, well, you probably can't see concave on itself. So what you do, that really stuck to me, is you just kind of hold this over and you're supposed to let the bread fall out of it naturally. I'm normally not patient enough, so I'll just kind of, you can't see with my hand here, I'll just kind of give it a little scrape. And now it's fallen. Kind of gets stuck on the edges though. Featuring Victoria, who's a little bit upset because it's almost bedtime. So basically, to shape this, we're going to make a big rectangle. I don't really know why this is the method, but this is where we're at. So you got a big rectangle, you take a flap, and you just fold it inward on itself. And then I'll show you kind of what this looks like. I think that's a better angle. I still got this on my hand. Whatever, that's where we're at. So you just kind of roll it up like this. And now we start our push and pulls. So the push and pulls are kind of just like what they sound like. You push and then kind of give it a little pull in like a candy cane shape. It'll be sticky, and depending on what kind of surface you have, it'll just kind of slide around. The more flour you use, the less the dough will stick to itself, which is why I don't use that much flour. I want the dough to form one big cohesive ball and not really stick to itself. How my countertop works, and it kind of just like slides back and forth on it in like a slimy way. I don't know if I'll be able to show you afterward, but you just do this until you feel like it's just one cohesive ball. Try to be a little bit careful with it. You're not really supposed to break any of the dough that's on the top, but I just kind of, you know, here we go. And then once you feel like you've got it fine, take your banneton. You could also just use any bowl, I think, and just line it with like a damp cloth and throw some rice flour on there and you'll be fine. So then you take it and then you kind of flip it upside down into here. And this will be kind of like an open seam. And so you kind of just like pinch it together to keep it together. I don't know. And then you just cover it. And we'll go put it in the fridge where it can go anywhere from a few hours, cold proofing. If you like make your loaf in the afternoon or evening, you can just put it, you can leave it on your counter overnight and then just put it in the fridge, I think, for a few hours in the morning. I always do it so that my cold proofing happens at nighttime. So it's 9 o'clock, I'm gonna go put it in the fridge and I'll get it out around 8 or 9 tomorrow morning. But it maybe even 7, like I don't really think it matters how long it's in there for. At least it hasn't mattered for me. So I'm gonna go stick it in the fridge and see you in the morning. Okay, so it's the next morning. We are finally on day 3, which is bake day. You're going to preheat your oven to 450 degrees with your Dutch oven inside. Okay, oven is at 450, so we will get our loaf out of the fridge. I put mine on a silicone mat. Parchment paper also would work. It's been in the fridge for maybe around 12 hours. This is called a cold proof. Some recipes don't call for it, but some do. Mine does. I don't know what the cold proof does, but I think this is like the way. I don't know. Oh, it looks like there's a little fuzzy on it or something. I didn't flour this enough, I guess. Normally it just falls right out of there, so always remember to re-flour it or make sure there's enough flour in there. I'm not really fancy. I just kind of make a plus sign. Some people will do like this an arch. Some people will do a whole design, but here we are. So this is what we're looking like. We'll grab. Your lid will be hot, so I have to double up. Oh, I already melted it. Okay, I'm gonna put it in there, and then I'm gonna wait for 25 minutes. Okay, it's been 25 minutes. So we take the lid off. Hot. And we wait for another 15-ish. It's been another 15 minutes, so now we're gonna take it out of the oven. And it's hot, so double up. Take a look at this. Now for the hard part. We have to let that sit and cool for at least an hour, but many hours. Okay, it's been maybe an hour. When you touch it, it's still a little bit warm, but Hunter and I have no patience, so we like to cut it now. Cutting it in the middle and looking for the holes is what's called a bread loaf crumb. And this is how you know that you've done a good job. There should be holes there. Can you give it a little squeeze? And it should be able to kind of squeeze a little bit. And there you have it. It's kind of hard to cut, so you'll have to use force and be careful that you don't hurt yourself. And enjoy. Now that your loaf is cut, Hunter and I enjoy it with some butter, but other people will make a concoction of an oil blend with olive oil. But that's it. 3-day journey, small loaf, and enjoy. My favorite part of the loaves, ironically, is the butt and the very first, well, the very middle, biggest piece. Those are the best. Enjoy!